Hello there, Armen.
Hi, Charlie.
Tell us a little bit more about who these men are that have been arrested and what's the overall context of this showdown?
So these two men are senior members of Law and Justice. That's the party that was in power in Poland for 8 years until last month. They had been convicted, then pardoned by President Duda in 2015. But that pardon was basically undone 2 years later by the Supreme Court. But then there was another twist where the Constitutional Court said that the pardon was actually okay. So it was a very long-running legal drama. But what this speaks to now, Charlie, in this very polarized Polish society that you have at the moment, is essentially kind of two parallel legal and political universes. And you see that reflected in, for example, the dual interpretations of the presidential pardon, but also two heads of public TV, doubles in the Constitutional Court, this constant duality, legal and political, because of these two very divided camps, the camp of the conservatives and the camp of the liberals, led by Donald Tusk, who's just come back as prime minister after many years out of power. And of course, he has an agenda to try to what he says is to depoliticize the courts, the institutions, the state-run companies, and there's obviously attempts by the former government to try to slow that down.
Right, because the former government had, many people saw it, sort of stacked the deck in their favor when it came to the legal system, media, so many areas of public life there. So you said that Donald Tusk, he recently returned to power as prime minister, but are political crises like these just going to keep happening as he tries to put his new agenda in place?
Well, you mentioned President Duda, Charlie, in your introduction. He's a key person to watch because he actually has a lot of power. The Polish presidency is not just some, symbolic thing. He can veto certain things. He can send things to the Constitutional Court where they would be struck down, at least as the court is constituted now. And presidential elections are not until 2025. So for anyone that is hoping for an entire kind of Tusk-aligned political system, that clearly is not going to happen for another couple of years. And then on the international front, yes, we've seen some changes in tone when it comes to EU summits that Donald Tusk has come back to. He himself, of course, a former president of the EU Council. So yes, a different tone, which is welcoming to some of his EU partners. But on the more ambitious EU reforms, you've got to remember that Tusk leads a coalition at home. And like with all coalitions, we've seen this with the German coalitions, there are significant differences and nuances. Some members of his coalition want to go much further on things like EU treaty reform. Others don't. They're a bit more conservative about EU reforms. So it's not a monolithic thing. And then, of course, on the key issue of trying to improve Poland's relations with Ukraine, which have taken a nosedive over the last year, that's also proving very difficult. Tusk faces seemingly some forces that are beyond his control. He wants to improve those relations, but Polish truckers and farmers have, in the last few weeks, defied him. So he's kind of caught between the demands of his own truckers particularly and farmers and his desire to improve relations with Ukraine.
All right, a very dramatic story. We'll definitely be keeping our eye on it here at France 24. Armen Georgian, our Europe editor, thanks for bringing us the latest.
Thank you.